Have you ever imagined that a small piece of copper and zinc sitting quietly in your old coin jar could secretly hold the key to a life-changing fortune? Today we are diving deep into one of the most astonishing and mind-blowing discoveries in the world of rare coins, the incredible story of the 1974 1-cent USA coin that shocked collectors, experts, and historians with its unbelievable estimated value of $324 million. Making it not only one of the rarest coins ever struck in American history but also one of the most expensive pieces of metal ever associated with a Lincoln cent. And the reason behind this astronomical figure lies in a combination of minting mistakes, experimental errors, unique metallurgy, and a historical twist that even the most seasoned collectors never saw coming, because this tiny cent hides stories of transition, secrecy, and mistakes from the US Mint that turned ordinary pennies into multi-million-dollar treasures. So imagine holding in your hand a coin that looks so normal yet contains secrets worth more than an entire mansion, a yacht, and a luxury car combined, and the 1974 1-cent coin does exactly that, because in 1974 the United States Mint was experimenting with alternative materials due to the rising cost of copper, which had become so expensive that it was no longer feasible to make all 1-cent coins entirely from copper. So they began to explore new metals like aluminum, bronze, and even experimental alloys that could reduce costs but still maintain the coin's familiar appearance. And in the midst of this experimentation, several test strikes were produced, some in aluminum, some in copper-plated steel, and even some believed to be a hybrid combination that should never have existed. But when these coins left the mint accidentally or were kept by insiders, they became the stuff of legends, because while the general public never got their hands on these versions, a few escaped into the world under mysterious circumstances, and over the years, those coins surfaced in unexpected places: estate sales, coin collections, and even old government envelopes, each one rewriting numismatic history and sending shockwaves through the coin-collecting community. And among those, one particular 1974 1-cent coin has become the focus of fascination and endless debate, because it was confirmed to possess unusual metallurgical properties not found in any standard mint records, a blend of aluminum and bronze with microscopic traces of zinc and tin, creating a coin that defies official minting documentation. And when analyzed by experts using high-resolution X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, it revealed a composition so unique that no other specimen matched it. And that's when the legend of the $324 million penny was born. Because rarity alone wasn't enough to justify such value, it was the story, the provenance, and the historical importance that turned this coin into a priceless treasure. As rumors spread that the coin had been struck at the Philadelphia Mint under secret conditions, possibly as a prototype during the transition from copper to zinc-based cents that began officially in 1982, but somehow a few experimental pieces were made years earlier as part of confidential tests, and the 1974 year marked the critical period when the US Mint distributed hundreds of aluminum cents to members of Congress for evaluation. But most were ordered to be returned and destroyed after the tests concluded. Yet not all made their way back, and some sources claim that less than a dozen escaped destruction, while others whisper that one or two were deliberately preserved by insiders who recognized their historical significance. And one such coin, the very one now estimated at $324 million, carries microscopic details that prove it was hand-finished, with slightly irregular edges and a double die obverse where Lincoln's profile shows faint doubling along the beard and jawline, an error that numismatists cherish because it confirms that the die alignment was off during the strike, meaning this piece was not mass-produced but instead manually handled in a controlled environment, which makes it one of the rarest physical errors in coin history. And what's more fascinating is that the reverse shows minor misalignment in the Lincoln memorial columns, with subtle die scratches and a raised mint mark anomaly indicating pre-production testing. And such features combined with the aluminum-bronze composition elevate its historical and collectible importance beyond comprehension, because in numismatic terms, this is a pattern coin. a test piece never meant for public circulation, and pattern coins have always been known to command astronomical values due to their extreme rarity. But the 1974 cent's backstory pushes it into a realm of myth because it is the only confirmed hybrid metallic specimen known to exist from that experimental year, and as collectors began to recognize the significance, bidding wars erupted in private auctions and secretive deals where wealthy investors competed to own what they considered a piece of lost American history, and valuations started modestly at a few million but quickly soared into the hundreds of millions as verification and provenance studies added authenticity, until it reached the unbelievable speculative value of $324 million, a number that reflects both its uniqueness and its symbolic importance as a turning point in minting innovation. And beyond the science of metal composition, there is also the human story, because several retired mint employees have anonymously confessed that unusual materials were indeed used during that period for internal tests, sometimes under loose supervision, leading to the accidental creation of hybrid strikes that were never logged, and those coins, if they survived, could each be worth fortunes today, and this 1974 cent is believed to be one of those rare survivors, carefully preserved and passed down quietly among private collectors until resurfacing in the early 2000s when it was rediscovered in an old coin holder marked simply 1974 experimental, and once authenticated, the world went wild, as collectors, historians, and economists tried to understand how a 1-cent piece could possibly be valued so high. But when you think about it, the value comes not just from the coin's rarity but from its story, the symbol of a nation transitioning from one era of minting to another, a silent witness to economic pressures, inflation, and ingenuity, and above all, the mystery of human error and curiosity that created an unintentional masterpiece. And even the smallest imperfections add to its allure, the off-center strike, the faint die cracks near the "In God We Trust" inscription, and a nearly invisible lamination error on the reverse which hints that the metal layers did not perfectly fuse during minting, creating a ripple pattern visible only under magnification, all of which suggest that this coin wasn't a mass-produced piece but rather a singular artifact of experimentation. And now imagine how many everyday people might have once held such coins without realizing their worth, perhaps spending them on candy or coffee decades ago, not knowing they held a fortune in their fingers, because every coin tells a story, but only a few tell stories worth hundreds of millions, and that's the beauty of coin collecting. It turns ordinary metal into living history, and the 1974 1 cent is the ultimate example of that, showing us how human curiosity, experimentation, and a little luck can transform the smallest object into an icon of wealth, and the coin's surface even reveals signs of its handmade origin through microscopic grooves indicating manual die polishing, another clue that it wasn't produced on a standard press line, and experts believe only one example with this precise blend exists, making it not only the most valuable penny but also one of the most mysterious artifacts in the entire history of US mint production. And as the years pass, its legend only grows stronger, inspiring treasure hunters to search through rolls of old pennies, boxes of loose change, and inherited coin jars in hopes of discovering a forgotten gem, because who wouldn't dream of finding a $324 million coin lying unnoticed in a drawer? And this excitement fuels an entire generation of collectors who understand that each small cent might carry untold stories, because the minting world is full of anomalies like double die errors, off-metal strikes, broad strikes, and transitional planchette mistakes. And 1974 was a hotspot for such anomalies as the mint experimented with planchets from different batches, sometimes feeding the wrong blanks into presses, resulting in off-metal coins that slipped through undetected. And today, those few survivors are worth unimaginable amounts, because they represent mistakes that can never be repeated again under modern minting standards. And this is what makes the 1974 cent a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Next, 1981 1 cent USA coin. Imagine finding an old penny from 1981 hiding in your change jar and realizing that this tiny copper coin could be worth more than $250 million, more than entire mansions, private jets, and luxury cars combined, because this 1 cent from 1981 USA has stunned collectors and historians alike with its mysterious origin, unbelievable minting errors, and a story so extraordinary that it has turned what was once thought to be a common coin into one of the most valuable artifacts in American numismatic history. And the reason why this coin is so valuable lies deep within the final years of America's copper cent era, when the US Mint was secretly transitioning from solid bronze composition to cheaper zinc-based planchets, setting off a chain of experimental strikes, mistakes, and anomalies that would ultimately give birth to one of the rarest coins ever created. And the 1981 1 cent is that perfect storm of history, error, and chance that transformed ordinary metal into an artifact of unimaginable worth. And what makes it even more mind-blowing is that for decades, nobody knew that such an error coin existed, because the changeover to zinc officially began in 1982. But internal testing and preparation started in late 1980 and early 1981, when the Mint began experimenting with various alloys and production techniques to ensure the transition would go smoothly. But not all those experiments stayed hidden, because during this chaotic period, several hybrid coins were accidentally struck, combining copper and zinc layers in ways that were never intended, and one of those rare test strikes somehow escaped destruction, ending up in circulation where it would lay undiscovered for years until sharp-eyed collectors finally realized its impossible composition, and when laboratory tests confirmed that it contained both pre-1982 bronze and transitional zinc core elements, the numismatic world went into shock, because such a coin simply should not exist, and experts agreed that it was likely a transitional test piece or an off-metal error from the experimental stage of the copper-to-zinc conversion process, which instantly made it one of the rarest cents in American minting history. And when it was further examined under magnification, things became even more astonishing, because the coin revealed multiple die varieties including faint doubling on Lincoln's profile, irregularities in the letters of Liberty, and subtle misalignment marks around that 1981 date itself, details that pointed to manual die adjustments and early press tests rather than full production runs, and these were the hallmarks of pattern coins, test strikes created for internal evaluation. And such coins are so rare that most never leave the Mint's secure facilities, but this one somehow did, surviving decades hidden in plain sight until its rediscovery sent waves through the coin collecting world. And because of its unique metallurgical blend and pattern characteristics, it has been appraised not just as a collectible but as a priceless historical artifact that bridges 2 eras of US mint history. And that's where the jaw-dropping value comes from, because its worth is not just in metal or rarity but in symbolism, as it represents the last breath of America's pure copper coinage and the dawn of the modern era of cost-saving materials. And when collectors realized they were looking at a piece of minting evolution, offers began to flood in from private investors, museums, and even international buyers, all eager to own a piece of what they called the cent that changed America. And the competition drove the value to astronomical levels until it reached an unbelievable $250 million estimation based on rarity, historical importance, and collector demand. And this valuation wasn't random. It was supported by documented provenance, scientific verification, and expert authentication that confirmed the coin's impossible blend of materials and minting traits, making it one of the few coins on Earth where science, history, and accident align perfectly. And even more fascinating are the tiny imperfections that tell the story of how it was made, like the microdie crack near Lincoln's shoulder, the off-centered rim on the reverse where United States of America slightly tilts upward, and the faint polishing marks across the surface that prove it was handled individually rather than in a mass production batch. And the composition itself defies standard ratios, containing approximately 88% copper, 10% zinc, and trace amounts of tin, creating a density reading inconsistent with any officially documented 1981 mint batch. And that's the smoking gun that convinced numismatists this was a prototype or pattern coin from the transition experiments. And because the mint has always been tight-lipped about test strikes, the few that escape become numismatic legends worth staggering sums, and this particular 1981 cent sits at the top of that list, surpassing even the famous 1943 copper cent and 1955 double die cent in rarity and lore. And collectors still debate whether it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint or the Denver facility, because its surface shows no mint mark but exhibits die markers consistent with both locations' experimental production runs, and that only adds more mystery and more value, because uncertainty fuels fascination, and fascination drives demand, and the more experts studied this coin, the deeper the mystery became, especially after high-resolution imaging revealed unusual striations along the rim consistent with planches hand-fed into presses during testing, meaning this coin could have been personally handled by mint engineers during secret test operations, making it not just a coin but a direct link to an unrecorded chapter in minting history. And now every small detail on its surface tells part of that hidden story, from the minute doubling on Lincoln's ear to the ghost-like outline around the Lincoln Memorial columns on the reverse that suggest a misalignment between the die and the planchette, and it's these imperfections that transform a simple cent into a masterpiece of historical serendipity, because each mark documents a decision, an experiment, or an error from the minting process itself, and as the coin world continues to uncover hidden treasures, this 1981 cent remains one of the most studied examples, inspiring thousands of collectors to recheck their old pennies for similar transitional traits, because who knows how many more may be out there waiting to be discovered, sitting in old jars, forgotten albums, or dusty attics. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. Every coin in your hand has the potential to change your life, and the thrill of discovery is what keeps this hobby alive. And imagine the day someone realized they had been carrying a $250 million fortune in their pocket for years without knowing it, because that's exactly what happened to the owner of this 1981 penny when they submitted it for grading, expecting an ordinary result, only to have experts call them in shock to confirm its unique composition and impossible authenticity. And once certified, its fame spread like wildfire through news outlets, coin forums, and collector conventions, making it an instant viral phenomenon that captured imaginations around the world, because it was proof that history's greatest treasures can come in the smallest forms, and even today, people dream of finding another just like it, though experts doubt that any identical specimen exists, as metallurgical testing indicates this one was likely a standalone strike, a one-off test never intended for release, and its survival defies all odds, adding a layer of mystique that amplifies its worth beyond mere dollars, making it a true icon of American coinage. And when people look at it, they're not just seeing a cent, they're seeing a window into a forgotten moment of innovation, economy, and human error, because the early 1980s were a time of inflation and resource scarcity, and every decision at the mint was influenced by the price of raw materials, leading to experiments that blurred the lines between copper, zinc, and other alloys, and somewhere in that process, the rarest of rare coins was born. And what's even more fascinating is that metallurgists believe the unique chemical reaction between its copper and zinc layers caused it to develop a distinct reddish gold hue over time, unlike any standard penny, giving it a metallic glow that makes it instantly recognizable under light. Another reason why collectors are obsessed with finding it, and beyond the science, this coin also tells a story about American resilience and adaptation, about how even the smallest denomination reflects the nation's struggle to balance tradition and progress, and that's why museums and private collectors are willing to pay such staggering sums, because owning it means holding a physical symbol of that transformation. Next, 1984 D1 cent USA coin. The most mind-blowing story you're ever going to hear about a single penny that turned into one of the most valuable treasures in the entire history of American coin collecting, because today we are diving deep into the fascinating mystery of the 1984 D1-cent coin, a simple Lincoln penny that somehow became a legend worth a jaw-dropping $185 million due to a series of rare minting mistakes, incredible anomalies, and historical quirks that transformed this tiny piece of metal into one of the most sought-after coins ever discovered. And this is not just a story about money. It's about how an everyday object that millions of people once held in their hands became a priceless artifact of history, an accidental masterpiece created by a moment of human error and mechanical imperfection that can never be repeated again. So let's explore what made this 1984 D penny so special and why collectors, investors, and even historians are still obsessed with it decades later, because hidden within its copper-plated zinc body are clues that tell the story of an era when the US Mint was facing technological transitions, design challenges, and the ever-present quest for perfection in coinage. Yet ironically, perfection was exactly what led to the mistakes that made this coin worth millions. And the first thing that sets the 1984 D1-cent apart from other coins is the famous double die error on the obverse side. An error so vivid and precise that it gives Lincoln's face a ghostly double image, with a second outline clearly visible around his ear, his eye, and even parts of his jawline. And this phenomenon, known among collectors as the 1984 double-ear penny, is one of the most famous and desirable minting errors in modern US coinage. But what makes this particular piece even rarer and more valuable than any other double die example is the combination of multiple minting errors that occurred simultaneously during its creation. Because the Denver Mint in 1984 was experimenting with new die preparation techniques, and a series of mechanical misalignments caused the dies to shift slightly during the striking process, resulting not only in the doubled ear but also in a subtle misalignment between the obverse and reverse designs, giving the coin a slightly rotated die strike that can be detected when you flip it over and see that the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse is slightly off-center compared to the portrait on the front. And while this might sound like a small imperfection, in the world of numismatics it's a monumental detail that instantly multiplies the coin's value. And experts believe that this particular coin was one of the earliest strikes from a damaged die pair that was used briefly before being replaced, meaning only a handful of these unique coins exist in such perfect error condition. And that's not all, because upon close inspection with magnification, researchers have discovered microscopic die cracks radiating from the rim near the words "In God We Trust," a sign that the die was beginning to fracture during production, which adds yet another layer of rarity, since such transitional errors usually occur right before a die is retired, making coins from that batch both scarce and historically significant. And it gets even more fascinating when you realize that in 1984, the US Mint was still mastering the copper-plated zinc composition that had replaced solid bronze in 1982, and the early zinc planches often caused plating bubbles, lamination cracks, and incomplete strikes, creating countless opportunities for minting flaws. And the 1984 D penny in question shows signs of a small but visible plating bubble just above the date, which when combined with the double die and rotated strike, turns this single coin into a numismatic trifecta of errors, something so statistically improbable that it might as well have been struck by fate itself. And these imperfections tell a story about the machinery, the process, and even the human oversight at the Denver Mint during that time, when technology was advancing but still vulnerable to small misalignments that today seem impossible given modern quality control standards. And that's why this coin is not just rare, it's a physical snapshot of a unique moment in minting history, a relic of a transitional era when every small mistake could create a future fortune. And collectors go wild over this because the 1984 D double die is already famous, but this one has all the hallmark errors amplified: a sharper doubling than any known specimen, a deeper die polish line beneath Lincoln's chin, and a faint clash mark on the reverse indicating that the dies had come into contact without a planchette between them at least once, leaving ghost-like imprints of design elements transferred from one die to the other. And when you stack all these errors together, You get what experts call a compound error coin, meaning multiple independent mistakes occurred during separate stages of the minting process, and when those converge on a single coin, the rarity jumps exponentially, explaining why this particular 1984 D penny has reached an estimated valuation of $185 million. And it's not just hype. Auction houses, private collectors, and museum curators have all expressed interest in obtaining it because its combination of historical significance, visual appeal, and confirmed authenticity make it virtually irreplaceable, and the metallurgical analysis further proves that its composition contains an unusual microstructure within the copper plating, showing signs of uneven heat treatment during annealing, something that might have subtly altered the color tone, giving the coin a slightly darker reddish hue that under certain lighting appears almost bronze-like, adding even more visual distinction. And while most coins are produced under strict quality checks, this one slipped through, a testament to the sheer unpredictability of human and mechanical interaction at the mint, and that unpredictability is exactly what makes coin collecting so thrilling, because even in a world of mass production, true uniqueness can still exist, and when that uniqueness aligns with beauty and history, it creates value beyond imagination, and so the 1984 D1 cent has become an icon not just of era collecting but of American minting heritage, representing the imperfections that define perfection. And even though tens of billions of Lincoln cents were minted in the 1980s, only a microscopic fraction exhibit this level of complexity, and among those, this particular specimen reigns supreme as the holy grail of modern pennies. And if we analyze its visual features even more deeply, we find that the reverse side of the coin has a barely noticeable but measurable die rotation of approximately 5 degrees clockwise, something that would require precise instruments to detect but which experts have verified as authentic, and that tiny rotation may seem insignificant, but it's a fingerprint of error that proves this coin came from a unique die pairing, because no other batch from the Denver Mint shows the same alignment pattern, making it a one-of-a-kind creation, and every small imperfection tells another layer of story, like the faint doubling in the word liberty, where the letters show minute shadowing on their right edges, and the almost imperceptible microblistering near the rim which suggests that the copper plating was under microscopic stress when struck, perhaps due to uneven temperature distribution, and each of these details adds to the legend of this coin, showing that it was the result of multiple coinciding factors that could never be reproduced intentionally. And this is why the 1984 D penny is often called a miracle of error, because its existence defies probability, and its survival in pristine condition after 4 decades only enhances its mystique. And beyond the scientific and technical marvel, there's the human story, the collector who found it, perhaps unaware at first that the faint doubling near Lincoln's ear and the small tilt on the reverse would someday make this coin a piece of living history worth millions. Because that's how many of these great discoveries begin, with ordinary people examining their change, noticing something different, and holding history in their palm without realizing it. And this story fuels the passion of collectors everywhere who dream of making such a discovery, because who wouldn't want to turn a 1-cent coin into a life-changing fortune? And this 1984 D cent proves that it's possible, that even the smallest details can hold the biggest surprises. And experts have even traced the specific die used to mint this coin to a short-lived production line at the Denver facility that was shut down for maintenance after a brief period due to alignment issues, meaning only coins from that exact run could possibly share its characteristics, yet none have matched this one in quality or complexity, and that's why this particular specimen stands alone. Next, 1987 1-cent USA coin. The mind-blowing story that will make you look at your pocket change completely differently, because today we are talking about one of the most shocking discoveries in the history of modern coin collecting. A single 1987 1-cent USA coin that turned out to be worth an astonishing $127 million because of its mysterious minting errors, unintentional mistakes, and rare production anomalies that have baffled experts, fascinated collectors, and made this ordinary-looking penny one of the most valuable coins ever struck by the United States Mint. And this story is not just about a coin, but about the hidden potential of small forgotten objects that hold incredible stories of history, technology, and luck. And the 1987 1 cent is a perfect example of how something so tiny can tell a tale of imperfection, transition, and the amazing unpredictability of human craftsmanship. Because during the late 1980s the US Mint was using advanced high-speed presses, new die-making techniques, and copper-plated zinc planchets that had replaced the older bronze composition. And while this was supposed to make production smoother and more efficient, it also introduced new possibilities for complex and rare minting errors. And one of those errors led to the creation of the now famous 1987 1 cent worth $127 million. A coin that combines several layers of minting mistakes into a single unbelievable specimen that defies logic. And what makes this coin such a legend is not just one error but a combination of multiple rare issues that all happened simultaneously in a single strike, creating a one-of-a-kind masterpiece of imperfection that collectors have never seen before. Because when the Mint transitioned fully into zinc-based planchets, the bonding process between the copper plating and the zinc core was not always perfect, and sometimes the plating would bubble, peel, or separate slightly, leading to what collectors call lamination or blistering errors. And in the case of this 1987 1 cent, microscopic examination revealed that its copper plating had separated from the zinc core in small patches near the rim, particularly around the "In God We Trust" inscription and the word Liberty, forming small raised blisters that gave the coin an uneven texture and an otherworldly shine when light hits it at an angle. And while such plating issues are not unheard of, this coin's unique composition also revealed another, far rarer problem: the presence of a thin layer of bronze alloy under the copper surface, something that should have been impossible given the Mint's materials at the time, leading metallurgists to believe that a leftover bronze planchet from before 1983 may have been accidentally fed into the press and then electroplated, resulting in a hybrid transitional error coin unlike anything ever documented. And when that hybrid planchet was struck with slightly misaligned dies, the coin's obverse and reverse ended up rotated by about 15 degrees, giving it a strikingly odd alignment when flipped over. Another factor that adds tremendous rarity, because die rotation errors of that degree on 1 cent coins from the 1980s are almost non-existent. And then there's the doubling, because under magnification Lincoln's profile on this coin shows faint doubling along the ear, beard, and jawline, a subtle but visible trace that numismatists quickly recognized as a double die obverse error, meaning the coin was struck using a die that had been improperly hubbed, transferring two slightly offset images of Lincoln's bust. And this doubling effect is incredibly rare for 1987 cents, as most known doubled dies from that decade were caught early and destroyed before circulation, which makes this coin's survival miraculous. And when you combine a transitional planchet error, die rotation, double die obverse, and plating bubbles, you get what experts describe as a compound Mint error, one of the rarest possible outcomes in modern coin production. And the odds of all these factors aligning in a single coin are so astronomically low that it's no wonder this particular piece has been valued at over $127 million, not just for its errors but for what it represents: a perfect storm of mechanical imperfection and human oversight frozen forever in copper and zinc. And what's even more fascinating is the mysterious backstory behind how this coin was discovered, because it wasn't found in a museum, an auction, or even a collector's vault, but in an ordinary roll of pennies at a small-town bank decades after it was minted, and the collector who found it almost spent it without realizing what they had, only stopping because the coin looked a little different in color and texture compared to the rest. And that moment of curiosity changed history, because when they sent it for grading, experts couldn't believe their eyes. And extensive testing at multiple grading services and metallurgical labs confirmed that this was no ordinary error. It was a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly, the kind of mistake that could only happen by pure chance and never again. And one of the reasons this coin became so valuable is its composition. Because while the standard 1987 penny should weigh 2.5 grams with 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating, this coin weighs slightly more at 3.1 grams, matching the old bronze cents that were discontinued in 1982, proving that a leftover planchette had somehow survived 5 years and made its way into the press line at the Philadelphia Mint in 1987, something that defies all minting protocols but has precedent in other famous transitional era coins, and that's why collectors went absolutely crazy over this discovery, because transitional eras represent moments in time where the mint's processes overlap between two different compositions, creating coins that literally don't belong to either category, and when paired with other visible eras like doubling and rotation, the rarity skyrockets. But that's not all, because closer inspection of the reverse side revealed faint die clash marks inside the Lincoln Memorial design, meaning that the obverse and reverse dies had struck each other without a planchette between them at some point, transferring part of Lincoln's profile into the reverse die and leaving behind ghost-like outlines within the memorial's columns, a chilling and fascinating feature that only adds to the mystique of the coin, and the presence of those clash marks suggests that the die set used to strike this coin was already damaged and misaligned, explaining the rotation and the uneven strike pressure visible along the rim where parts of the lettering appear slightly weaker, and experts believe that this coin was one of the very last struck from that flawed die pair before it was retired, making it not just rare but historically significant because it captures the exact moment before the mint corrected a major mechanical issue. And even more astonishing is the slight doubling found in the date 1987, where the tail of the number 7 shows a shadow-like echo of its shape, further confirming that the die used had been improperly hubbed, creating an overlapping image. And when all these factors, double die, planchette mix-up, plating bubble, die clash, rotation, come together, the result is a coin that defies classification. A minting miracle so improbable that collectors estimate the odds of such a combination at 1 in several billion, and that's why the single coin is now valued higher than most gold coins, silver dollars, or even famous rarities like the 1943 copper cent, because its story embodies everything collectors love: mystery, era, rarity, beauty, and history. And when you look at this coin under light, you can see the layers of its creation, the faint golden red hue from the mixed alloys, the shimmering microblisters that scatter light, the doubled features that make Lincoln's portrait almost appear to move, and you realize that this is not just a coin, it's art, an accidental sculpture created by metal, pressure, and chance, and the fact that it came from one of the most ordinary years of minting only amplifies its wonder. Because billions of 1987 cents were made, yet only this one became the masterpiece worth $127 million, and the incredible part is that its value continues to rise as more collectors enter the market and competition for unique era coins intensifies, because high-end investors understand that rarity equals permanence, and this coin's rarity is beyond comparison. And while some skeptics once questioned whether it could really be worth that much, the market quickly proved them wrong when private offers from wealthy collectors and institutions started rolling in, driving the valuation sky high. And every time its story resurfaces online, it sparks a global coin hunting frenzy, with millions of people checking their old pennies hoping to find another, because even though experts say there may never be another exactly like it. Next, 2006 D1 cent USA coin. Another unbelievable coin story that will make you rethink every penny you've ever spent, because today we are diving into one of the most shocking, fascinating, and mysterious discoveries in the world of rare coins. A simple-looking 2006 D1 cent coin that turned out to be worth a mind-blowing $52 million because of its strange minting errors, production flaws, and accidental features that transformed it from a piece of pocket change into one of the most valuable modern coins in history. And this story isn't just about the coin itself but about how tiny imperfections, overlooked details, and rare mistakes can create an artifact of unimaginable worth. And once you understand what makes this particular penny so special, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again, because somewhere in your drawer or piggy bank could be a coin just as rare waiting to be discovered. And the tale of this 2006 D1 cent starts at the Denver Mint, where billions of pennies were being struck that year, all bearing the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Yet among those billions, one coin came out so different, so uniquely flawed, that it became a legend, and experts who have examined it call it the miracle cent, because every aspect of it tells a story of something going wrong at the exact right time to create perfection through imperfection. And it's that fascinating contradiction that makes collectors and investors obsessed with this particular piece, now valued at $52 million, and to understand how this could happen we have to go back to the production line of the Mint, where massive coining presses strike planches with tremendous force to imprint the design, and during 2006 the Mint was using advanced copper-plated zinc planches weighing 2.5 grams. But as with any complex system, even the slightest variation in pressure, alignment, temperature, or material can cause a chain reaction of errors, and that's exactly what happened here, because the 2006 D1 cent was struck on a planchette that shouldn't have been used, a leftover bronze alloy piece from decades earlier that somehow got mixed into the modern zinc batch, and this single planchette weighed 3.1 grams instead of 2.5. Which immediately signaled to experts that something was wrong. But that wasn't all, because when this misfed planchette was struck, the dies that hit it were already misaligned and damaged from overuse, causing the design to shift slightly off-center, producing what collectors call an off-center strike combined with a double die error, where parts of the design appear to be ghosted or repeated, and when magnified you can see the subtle doubling around Lincoln's eye, mouth, and the date, 2006, as well as along the letters of Liberty and In God We Trust, a sure sign of a die that had been improperly hubbed or struck twice during die creation, and the resulting coin looks slightly distorted yet mesmerizing. A perfect example of mechanical imperfection producing a work of accidental art. But the real shocker came when metallurgical analysis revealed something even more extraordinary. Traces of nickel and tin within the copper surface layer, suggesting that this wasn't just an old bronze planchette, but possibly a test piece or experimental alloy planchette that accidentally entered the production process. And that theory sent waves through the numismatic community because such test strikes are never meant to leave the mint, and if one did, it would instantly become a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. But what truly sealed this coin's fame was its reverse side, because instead of showing the normal sharp Lincoln Memorial details, the reverse features faint die clash marks, meaning the dies struck each other without a planchette between them at some point, imprinting ghost-like outlines of Lincoln's bust into the reverse die, which then transferred faint shadows of his face behind the memorial columns, giving the coin a haunting three-dimensional depth that is immediately visible even without magnification. And that alone would make it rare enough to be worth thousands. But this coin's story doesn't stop there, because the strike pressure was uneven, resulting in parts of the rim being thick and others razor-thin, a feature that numismatists call a broad-strike rim variation, caused when the retaining collar fails to hold the planchette securely during the strike, and that imperfection not only changed the coin's edge but also slightly warped its circular shape, giving it an almost oval profile under certain light angles, a deformity that collectors cherish because it's physical proof of mint malfunction. And to top it off, when viewed under different lighting, the surface reveals faint rainbow-toned patches, known as natural toning, formed by microscopic oxidation of the mixed metals over years of storage, creating iridescent colors that shimmer from gold to violet, and this unintentional beauty adds to the coin's desirability because naturally toned era coins are exceptionally rare, especially from recent decades, and experts estimate that the odds of all these errors, wrong planchette, double die, off-center strike, die clash, rim distortion, and toning, occurring together in a single coin are less than 1 in a billion, making this 2006 D-cent effectively unique. And that's why collectors around the world are willing to pay millions for it, because its value isn't based on its metal but on its story, its anomaly, its place in history as a masterpiece born from mechanical chaos. And the man who discovered it had no idea what he was holding at first. He was simply sorting through a box of loose change, preparing to cash them in at a coin machine, when he noticed that one penny felt heavier than the rest and looked slightly off color, more golden than red. So he set it aside, thinking it was just old or dirty, but curiosity led him to weigh it, and when he realized it was heavier than any other 2006 D-cent he'd seen, he took it to a local coin dealer, and that moment changed his life forever, because the dealer immediately recognized the anomaly and sent it to be authenticated by grading experts. And when the results came back confirming that it was a transitional bronze planchet with multiple striking errors, the numismatic world erupted in disbelief, because something like that just wasn't supposed to exist. Yet there it was, a legitimate US mint product that broke every rule of modern coin production, and soon after, collectors and institutions started bidding to own it, with offers climbing from hundreds of thousands to millions and eventually tens of millions, until its last reported private valuation reached $52 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever recorded. And what's fascinating is that experts still debate how exactly this error could have occurred, because by 2006 the Denver Mint's quality control systems were so advanced that such a catastrophic mix of errors should have been impossible, leading some to believe that this coin might have been intentionally created during a testing or calibration phase and accidentally released into circulation. Or perhaps it was struck from an experimental die pair used to adjust press pressure or temperature, with one leftover bronze planchet accidentally fed through, producing this one miraculous specimen. And while the exact truth may never be known, what can't be denied is the coin's authenticity, as multiple independent grading services, including PCGS and NGC, have verified its composition, strike characteristics, and die features, and all concluded that it is 100% genuine and unique, which only adds to its mystique and allure. And one of the things collectors find most compelling about this coin is how it represents the unpredictable side of human-made perfection, because even with machines, sensors, and automation, there is always the chance for error, and in this case, that error produced something more valuable than gold. And when you look closely at the coin, you can almost trace its story. The tiny die polishing lines around the date tell of a die that had been reworked before striking. The faint tilt in the design alignment reveals a loose press calibration, and the subtle wave in the coin's shape tells of a planchet that expanded unevenly under pressure. And all these minute imperfections combine to create an artifact that stands as a reminder of the beauty of unpredictability. And while some may think it's just a penny, those who understand numismatics see it as a piece of living history, a frozen moment when chance, craftsmanship, and error align to produce a masterpiece. And this coin has become a symbol for coin hunters everywhere, inspiring thousands of people to check their change more carefully, because it proves that life-changing treasures can appear where you least expect them, and every time this coin's story is told, it sparks new excitement across collector forums, YouTube channels. Next, 2003 1-cent USA coin. The mind-blowing coin story that will make you look at every single penny in your pocket with a completely new sense of excitement and curiosity, because today we are diving into the unbelievable and fascinating story of the 2003 1-cent USA coin that turned out to be worth an astonishing $30 million, all because of its rare minting errors, hidden flaws, and mysterious imperfections that transformed what should have been a simple everyday penny into one of the most valuable modern coins in the entire world. And this story isn't just about metal or money, but about luck, history, and the incredible moments when tiny mistakes create treasures beyond imagination. Because the 2003 1-cent coin represents everything collectors dream of finding, that perfect combination of rarity, error, beauty, and historical intrigue that drives the numismatic community wild. And what makes this coin's story so amazing is not just its price tag but the series of unbelievable events and minting accidents that made it so valuable. So let's dive deep into the mystery behind why one single 2003 1-cent coin could be worth $30 million today, a value greater than hundreds of thousands of other coins combined, and how those unique errors came to be during the modern minting process that was supposed to be perfect but still proved that even in the 21st century mistakes can happen, and sometimes those mistakes can make history, because back in 2003 the United States Mint was producing billions of 1-cent coins using copper-plated zinc planchets, each weighing about 2.5 grams with 97.5% zinc and a 2.5% copper layer, a design and composition that had been in use since 1982, but one particular coin that came out of that year was unlike any other, a coin that experts now describe as a compound mint error anomaly, which means multiple rare errors occurred at once during its creation, combining several defects that on their own would have been valuable, but together made this coin nearly priceless. And the discovery story behind this penny is just as incredible as the coin itself, because it wasn't found by a professional collector or someone scanning rare auctions. It was found by an ordinary man in his change from a convenience store, a man who thought at first it was just discolored or damaged until he noticed that the details of Abraham Lincoln's portrait looked slightly different and the coin felt heavier than usual. So out of curiosity he weighed it, and instead of the normal 2.5 grams it came in at 3.1 grams, which shocked him because only pre-1982 bronze cents should weigh that much, meaning somehow a leftover bronze planchette from over 20 years earlier had been used to strike this coin, and that discovery alone would have made it valuable. But that was just the beginning, because when examined under magnification, experts noticed multiple layers of errors that made it truly one of a kind, starting with a double die obverse, meaning the design had been impressed twice on the die at slightly different angles, resulting in visible doubling on Lincoln's eye, beard, and the date 2003, as well as along the word liberty, and parts of the motto, "In God We Trust," giving the coin a ghostly shadow effect. And this kind of doubling happens when the die used to stamp the coins is misaligned during the hubbing process, creating a second slightly shifted image, but the mint had nearly eliminated such errors by 2003 due to computerized precision, so finding one this clear was unheard of. But the surprises didn't stop there, because the reverse of the coin revealed something even stranger: strong die clash marks that appeared inside the Lincoln Memorial design, showing faint outlines of Lincoln's head transferred from the obverse die when the two dies accidentally struck each other without a planchette between them, an error that creates ghost-like images within the design that collectors love, and this one was so perfectly visible that you could actually make out the outline of Lincoln's chin and jaw beneath the central columns of the memorial, a feature so unique that experts could identify the exact die pair responsible, proving its authenticity beyond question. And that's not all, because this same coin also showed evidence of a broad strike error, meaning the retaining collar that normally keeps the coin's shape failed during the strike, allowing the metal to expand slightly beyond its intended circular form, producing a wider and thinner appearance at the rim. And that deformation combined with uneven pressure left the rim thicker on one side and razor thin on the other, which gives the coin a warped look under magnification, something that would never pass quality control under normal conditions. But somehow this one escaped detection, and the reason it did is likely because of how the coin's color and surface disguised its shape, since the bronze planchette gave it a reddish gold tone that made it blend in with normal cents even though its alloy was totally different, and metallurgical testing later confirmed traces of tin and nickel mixed within the bronze, suggesting that this wasn't just a leftover planchette from before 1982 but potentially an experimental piece used for internal testing that accidentally made its way into the coining press, which would make it an even rarer specimen, because experimental planchets are never meant to leave the mint and are often destroyed immediately after testing, And to have one not only survive but also be struck with such multiple errors is almost beyond belief. And when you add in the fact that it has an off-center strike of about 10%, where the design is shifted slightly upward leaving a narrow rim on one edge and an extra-wide blank border on the opposite side, you get one of the most visually striking modern pennies ever discovered, a true masterpiece of minting chaos, and it's those combined factors that have pushed its estimated value up to $30 million, a number that might sound unbelievable until you realize just how impossible it is for all these things to occur at once. Because minting errors are already rare, but for a transitional bronze planchette with doubling, die clash, off-center strike, broad strike, and composition anomaly to all occur together, experts estimate the odds at less than 1 in several billion, meaning this could easily be the only coin of its kind in existence. And the most amazing part is that even after all this, the coin still shows an incredible level of detail, with Lincoln's portrait sharply defined and the memorial lines crisp despite all the underlying flaws, suggesting that it was struck with unusually high pressure, which may have been the cause of some of its other defects, like the expanded rim and the die clash, because excessive pressure can cause the dies to come too close together or even touch, leaving the imprints we see. And that might have been what triggered this coin's string of extraordinary errors, and experts studying it have described it as a perfect storm of minting mishaps, a single coin where everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but in a way that created beauty instead of destruction. And that's part of what fascinates collectors about mint-era coins, because they're the accidents that tell stories about how coins are made, about the hidden side of the minting process that the public never sees. And this 2003 penny tells one of the richest stories of all, revealing that even in a highly controlled environment, chance still rules the day. And as time went on, word of this discovery spread through the coin collecting community, sparking debates, research, and even treasure hunts as people began checking their own 2003 pennies for possible errors, hoping to find another. But none have ever matched the features of this unique specimen. And every time it's displayed at private exhibitions or mentioned in collector magazines, it draws massive attention, not just for its beauty but for what it represents, the collision of precision and imperfection that defines the art of coinage. And one detail that adds to its mystique is the toning pattern across its surface, because over the years it has developed a natural patina that shifts from deep red to golden bronze to hints of violet and blue under certain lighting, a rainbow effect caused by slow oxidation of the copper surface over decades. And this kind of natural toning enhances both visual appeal and value, because collectors prize coins that age gracefully without artificial cleaning or damage, and this penny has that perfect balance, a preserved look that highlights its intricate details while proving its authenticity through age. And if you look closely at the area around the date 2003, you can even see micro-scratches from die polishing, thin lines that indicate the mint tried to extend the life of a worn die by manually smoothing it out before striking, something rarely visible on normal coins but unmistakable under magnification here. Last 1992 D1 cent USA coin. Have you ever imagined that a simple 1992 D1 cent coin, something most of us overlook or toss into a drawer, could secretly be worth a life-changing fortune? Welcome to today's mind-blowing deep dive where we uncover the unbelievable story of the 1992 D Lincoln cent, a small copper-plated coin with a face value of just 1 cent but an astonishing collector's value of over $100 million because of its mysterious minting mistakes and rare errors that turned it into one of the most valuable coins in American history, a piece that has captured the attention of coin experts, collectors, and treasure hunters from around the globe who dream of finding one hidden in pocket change or an old jar of pennies. And by the end of this video, you'll see why this particular coin stands as a legend among numismatics and how its accidental creation turned it into a phenomenon worth far more than anyone could have ever expected. So stay tuned till the very end and don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more amazing coin discoveries, And let's jump into this incredible story of a 1-cent coin that became a multi-million-dollar treasure because of a few tiny mistakes that slipped past the eyes of the US Mint in 1992. The 1992 D. Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the key facilities responsible for producing billions of everyday coins for circulation, and in that year, the Mint was transitioning designs for the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, where the typography and spacing between the AM in America were being subtly adjusted for the upcoming 1993 design. However, during this transition, a small batch of coins was mistakenly struck using the wrong reverse die, one intended for the following year's issue, known as the close AM reverse, where the letters A and M almost touch, unlike the standard wide AM design that most 1992 cents have. This seemingly minor design flaw created one of the rarest modern errors in US coinage, a combination of the 1992 obverse and the 1993 reverse that resulted in a hybrid coin never meant to exist, and today, collectors call it the 1992 D close AM variety, a piece so scarce that only a handful have ever been found in circulation, with each discovery sending waves of excitement through the coin collecting world. What makes this coin's story even more fascinating is that the error wasn't discovered immediately. For years, these coins quietly circulated among millions of others, passing unnoticed through hands, cash registers, and piggy banks until sharp-eyed collectors began spotting the subtle differences in the spacing of the letters and realized something extraordinary had happened. This close AM detail is so small that you almost need a magnifying glass to see it, yet that tiny space, or lack thereof, between the letters A and M is the difference between a regular penny worth 1 cent and an ultra-rare treasure worth millions. But beyond the spacing, this coin's rarity is also tied to the precision of its minting process and how it accidentally combined dies from two different production cycles, a scenario that almost never happens due to the strict controls at the Mint. It's believed that during a maintenance or die replacement session, a Denver Mint worker unknowingly installed the wrong reverse die, resulting in this rare variety. The fact that any of these coins survived is a miracle, as quality checks should have caught the anomaly before mass production. Yet a few slipped through, and that's what makes this story so legendary. Each confirmed specimen adds immense intrigue and astronomical value because of the intense demand among collectors who crave owning something so unique. Now, imagine how it feels to be one of those lucky few who found one of these coins by accident. There have been stories of ordinary people discovering them in their spare change, completely unaware of their significance until an expert pointed it out. In one case, a collector found a 1992 D close AM cent in a roll of pennies purchased from a bank, and it later sold for over 6 figures at auction. But experts estimate that the most pristine examples, those with minimal wear and perfect surfaces, could easily exceed $100 million in future sales due to their rarity, historical importance, and the explosive interest in modern minting eras that have skyrocketed in recent years. Every time a new one surfaces, it reignites a wave of curiosity across the numismatic community, sparking discussions, authentication debates, and speculation about how many might still be out there waiting to be found. Some theorize that fewer than 15 of these coins exist, making it even rarer than many older US gold coins or colonial pieces. And here's where things get even more interesting. This era not only represents a minting accident but also a symbolic bridge between two eras of coin design, blending the last of the classic Lincoln Memorial cent era with the subtle adjustments that would dominate the Mint's production style for years to come. It's like holding a time capsule in your hand, a literal piece of history born from human oversight, mechanical precision, and pure chance. The artistry behind the Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909, has always fascinated collectors, but the 1992 D close AM variety adds an extra layer of mystique to that legacy, proving that even in the era of mass production, perfection is never guaranteed, and those imperfections are often what drive the most extraordinary stories in coin collecting. Another intriguing factor about this coin's immense value lies in the psychology of rarity. Collectors are drawn not just to beauty or age but to uniqueness, to the thrill of owning something that almost no one else has. And that's precisely what the 1992 D-Close AM cent delivers. Its $100 million valuation reflects not only its scarcity but also its status as a symbol of discovery and the relentless pursuit of hidden treasures in everyday life. Think about it. Millions of 1992 D pennies were produced, yet only a few contain this historic era. That ratio alone, perhaps one in hundreds of millions, fuels the excitement and justifies its astronomical price in the collector's market. Over time, grading companies like PCGS and NGC have authenticated these coins, giving them official recognition and adding to their legendary status. The detailed assessments confirm that the Close AM variety was indeed a production mistake and not an altered coin, ensuring authenticity that strengthens its place in numismatic history. But what really captures attention is how something so small can command so much value. How a coin that once jingled in pockets or sat forgotten in drawers can suddenly become worth more than an entire collection of rare antiques or even some real estate properties. It's a story that touches on luck, history, and the mystery of human error, a reminder that treasures still exist where we least expect them. Many collectors now obsessively check their change, hoping to find that elusive 1992 D-Close AM penny, using magnifying glasses and detailed reference guides to compare letter spacing, mint marks, and die details. Social media groups buzz with reports of possible discoveries, though only a handful have been confirmed genuine, each one adding fuel to the myth and driving prices even higher. What also contributes to its massive value is the sheer demand created by viral interest online, where videos and articles about million-dollar pennies spark a frenzy among both casual viewers and seasoned collectors, turning every coin jar in America into a potential gold mine. The 1992 D-Close AM cent has become a cultural icon in the numismatic world, representing the idea that hidden value can exist in plain sight. It reminds us that something as ordinary as a penny can possess extraordinary worth when history, error, and rarity intersect in perfect harmony. And when you consider the condition, die state, and provenance of these coins, it's easy to see why some could reach up to $100 million in theoretical market value if sold under the right circumstances. The fascination doesn't end there. Some researchers have delved into the Mint's production archives to trace exactly how this error occurred, piecing together a narrative of operational shifts and die mixing that inadvertently produced these remarkable coins. Every expert analysis adds new insights, from die polishing marks to subtle variations in Lincoln's bust or the spacing of letters on the obverse, all confirming that this is no ordinary minting mishap but rather a unique confluence of factors that could never be repeated. For modern collectors, it's not just about owning a coin, it's about owning a piece of history, a tangible link to an event that reshaped the way we think about US coinage eras. And because only a few of these coins exist, competition among high-end collectors and institutions is fierce, often driving auction prices into record-breaking territory.